Ascending to the Temple Mount. This is where it's at in the end times. On this edition of Roots and Reflections, we focus on the most important piece of real estate on planet Earth, the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, and the millennial-old conflict over what is described as the navel of the world. I spoke to Messianic Bible teacher Elchanan ben Avraham.
The Temple Mount is the center of the center, the place where Abraham took Isaac, Har Moriah, the Mount of Moriah, which means Jehovah is my teacher, Moriah. And this is where the very blueprint of the Messiah in the sacrifice of Isaac was established. This is where the King Solomon built the first temple, where the very presence of God filled. And this is the very place that in Herod's temple, the Son of God walked in, Yeshua HaMashiach, walked into this building and said, "This is my Father's house." See, he established Father and Son knowledge to the world. By the way, this stone, where we say that the temple is built upon, where Isaac was to be offered up by Abraham, is the word Evan. And I don't know if you thought of this, Barry, but Evan is made up of the word Av, Ben, Father, Son. The stone which the builder rejected, Av, Ben, Evan.
The prophet Zechariah says that God will make Jerusalem a very heavy stone for all peoples. All who would heave it away will surely be cut in pieces, though all the nations of the earth are gathered against it. God also said to Ezekiel, "Son of man, this is the place of my throne, and the place of the soles of my feet, where I will dwell in the midst of the children of Israel forever." You know what's so exciting? Ezekiel's vision is going to come to pass. Governments can't stop it. Politicians can't stop it. People can give authority to the Temple Mount to whoever they like, but God will have the final word in the Middle East.
You have here at this point, at the Temple Mount, a place where all the irreconcilable ends of the universe meet. I mean, you can try to reconcile them. You can try to say, well, let's live in peace, but they don't fit together. These ideas of truth and lies, light and darkness, clean and unclean, they will not fit together. No political expert can make them fit together. And they're being drawn into this absolute confrontation over this Temple Mount.
Scripture records the significance of the Son of God through Yeshua. And then, of course, there is Abraham sacrificing his son Isaac. But now, how does Islam view the whole issue of the Son of God?
Well, that house that Yeshua, that Jesus called my Father's house, was torn down in 70 AD by the Romans. And in the 7th century, a new building was put up there, which we see today, the Dome of the Rock. And upon that, most people don't know this, in the beautiful arabesques, is a quotation from the Quran, which says, "God has no son." And, of course, the Son of God walked into that very place, Yeshua, and said, "This is my Father's house," Father and Son. And now we have a new sign, a new poster up there. It says, "God has no son." And, of course, it's forbidden in Islam to call God Abba, or Father. So there's no father-son relationship. So this confrontation is building between the Son of God and another God, this Allah, you see, who has no son. Also, by saying Allah has no son, or God has no son, it's denying the chosenness of the Jewish people, who are called the firstborn son of God in Exodus 4:22. Right? For Israel is my firstborn son.
Inside the dome are actual inscribed verses of the Quran which deny that the Son of God ever existed. In fact, more or less translated as, "Behold, God has no son." The good news is that God not only has a son, but he's coming soon to the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. Stay tuned and watch Roots and Reflections. Why do the nations rage? The psalmist asks. One answer, because of the spiritual forces and principalities gathered over Jerusalem, hindering God's purpose of redemption. One battle of this age-old war took place 2,150 years ago when a Jew called Matthias and his 5 sons known as the Maccabees were appalled by the blasphemies being committed in Jerusalem, where the sanctuary was given over to aliens and their abominations.
According to the book of Maccabees, in those days, Mattithias, the son of John, son of Simeon, a priest of the sons of Joarib, moved from Jerusalem and settled in Modain. At this ancient site of the graves of the Maccabees, it's only a stone's throw, well, quite a long stone's throw, from modern city called Modain, which didn't even exist 15 years ago, but today is a flourishing city in the heart of Israel. Now that's exactly where my older daughter and son-in-law settled, and they did exactly what it said here in the book of Maccabees. They came down from Jerusalem and settled in Modain.
Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who has sanctified us with his commandments and has commanded us to kindle the Hanukkah light. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who has wrought miracles for our forefathers in those days at this season.
At Hanukkah, we celebrate the victory of the Maccabees over the Greeks and Hellenists who sought to eliminate Jewish practices by setting up Greek gods on the Temple Mount and other cities like Modain.
According to the prophet Zechariah, I will raise up thy sons, O Zion, against the sons of Greece. Here in Modain, upon the altar, the Greeks were trying to force the Jews to sacrifice to the pagan Greek gods. But Mattityahu, he stood up and he proclaimed amongst his people that he would not allow this to happen, and he slew the king's representative. From then on, Mattityahu cried out in the city with a loud voice, saying, "Let everyone who is zealous for the Torah and supports the covenant come out with me." And he and his sons fled to the hills and left all that they had in the city. This would begin the campaign against the Hellenistic Jews and the Greeks for the freedom of the temple in Jerusalem.
The Maccabean War against the Seleucid ruler Antiochus Epiphanes was long. The Jerusalem temple was finally liberated, cleansed, and rededicated to the Lord God of Israel. That is why we celebrate Hanukkah, commemorating that event. Hanukkah means literally dedication. A miracle associated with the festival occurred when the Jews rededicated the temple. The oil for the menorah in store was enough to last only one day, but miraculously it continued to burn for the full 8 days of the feast.
Power inside the fire, and burning so hard, so strong, even that it lasted for 8 days from only a small portion of oil. And that's all you needed, because God is so big.
8 days supernatural supply. God is our supernatural supply. He's Jehovah Jireh. He is our provider. That's how he supplies for the Joseph storehouse. He supplies for our ministry. God is an awesome God.
We want to meet the practical needs of those living in Israel, whether Jews or Arabs. The Joseph Storehouse has been established as a channel of God's mercy through the distribution of food, medical supplies, and other necessities to those most in need. By calling the number on the screen and becoming a monthly partner with us, or by going online and giving a one-off gift today, we can meet the needs of more people in the land. Please give generously. Your giving makes a world of difference to those in need.
Every year at Hanukkah, the Temple Mount faithful, led by Gershom Solomon, gather at the Maccabean graves in Modain to light the Chanukiah candelabra and declare their identification with the Maccabees. The Temple Mount faithful trace the Maccabean route from Modain to Jerusalem, site of great victory.
The few that overcame the many, by the spirit and faith in the Jewish way and in the eternal one of Israel, we declare here the calling that was declared 2,157 years ago in this very place by Mattithias and his sons, the heroes of Israel, that in a time similar to ours, with enemies occupying the holy places of our land and Jewish weakness internally, we in this place, in the presence of our God and the Maccabees, whose spirit is in this place, we as one declare the calling of the Maccabees. Who is for the Lord? Come out with me.
כולנו יחד. מי להשם אליי? אתם החשמונאים של ימינו.
You are the Hasmoneans of today, in the face of a nation that's losing its identity and its God and its land and is losing its very soul, the Temple Mount, and Jerusalem. We've come here to declare that we will continue in the way of the Maccabees until the Temple Mount is back in the hands of the nation of Israel and the house of the Lord is rebuilt. You, the few in number, are the strong, great in spirit and faith.
Today's the 8th day of Hanukkah. In Hebrew it's called Zot Hanukkah. This is it.
We're going to need lots of energy to follow the Temple Mount faithful up to Jerusalem. So let's take a snack break. I have to tell you, at Roots and Reflections, there are no boundaries to what we'll taste and eat. One of those things are sufganiyot, which is a traditional donut, but it's filled with jellies or jams, and now they've really gotten exotic and, of course, gone beyond the limits with white chocolate. Sufganiyot, my goodness, is that a fattening subject? But I'm telling you, Hanukkah, you can let yourself let go and have a sufganiyah.
We have butterscotch and strawberry butter and chocolate and white chocolate, and we have with nuts and without nuts, and that's it.
Which one is, that's which one here?
This is white chocolate with nuts.
Oh gosh, I have to try one of those.
Take one.
One for me and one for you.
I want brown chocolate.
Okay, so let's toast. Happy Hanukkah.
Happy Hanukkah.
Oh, they're the best. They're good, huh? Sufganiyot for Hanukkah at Mafia Naiman. The reason all these sufganiyot are being packed up right now is we're going to take them on behalf of the Joseph Storehouse to poor and needy children on behalf of Neumann Bakery in order to bless the children who don't have with great sufganiyot or donuts, which is a traditional gift during Hanukkah. This is a blessing that a bakery would be such a blessing for others, and we're happy through the Joseph Storehouse to bless those who are in need. Can you imagine if sufganiyot are this heavy? Imagine what it does to our weight. But you know what? These are so good.
The Joseph Storehouse has been established to provide humanitarian aid to Jews and Arabs throughout Israel, and you can play a part. Donate to this work by calling the number on the screen or going online today. There are also other ways you can be involved. Maybe you can come and assist us at the Joseph Storehouse here in Israel. Details of all these opportunities are online at rootsforyou.tv. If you have a desire to help those in need in Israel, we'd love to hear from you.
We shall light the Hanukkah candles. We are in a time which is so similar to the time of the Maccabees. On one hand, pressure of all the world, but the time is so similar, and not only in the political meaning, but also in the spiritual meaning inside Israel. On one hand, Israelis that feel that they belong to the heritage and the spiritual Maccabee revolution. On the other hand, the Hellenistic Jews, as they call them Israelis today, that believe with such a terrible mistake that Israel came back to the land to be another nation in the world, and they don't understand that Israel was regathered by God to the land.
In the time of the Maccabees and Hasmoneans, the country faced Hellenization. The land was being handed over to the Greeks, but the Maccabees changed history and saved the nation of Israel. Through that struggle of the few against the many, if they hadn't have done that, Israel would not be here today. We're the descendants of the Maccabees, and at this critical hour, this people and land must be saved again.
Gershon Solomon and the Temple Mount faithful declare their message to the nation of Israel inside Jaffa Gate, calling for a return to their roots, focusing on a house of God rebuilt on the Temple Mount. Many Israelis do not share their zeal. Things haven't changed since the days of the Maccabees.
The main preparation, I would say, is to prepare the hearts of the Israelis so they will understand that this is the main goal today. And I say it all the time to my people and to our leadership. In the moment that you will remove the Islamic enemy from the hill of God, from the Temple Mount, and build the temple, it will change all the atmosphere all over the world and open a pro-Israeli time all over the world. I have no doubt about it. This is the key place.
The Apocrypha says the sanctuary was trampled down, and the sons of aliens held the citadel. It was a lodging place for the Gentiles. Joy was taken from Jacob, and the flute and the harp ceased to play. But after Judas and his brothers defeated the Greeks, the tune changed. They also rebuilt the sanctuary and the interior of the temple and consecrated the courts. They made new holy vessels and brought the lampstand, the altar of incense, and the table into the temple. Then they burned incense on the altar and lighted the lamps on the lampstand, and these gave light in the temple. It was dedicated with songs and harps and lutes and cymbals. All the people fell on their faces and worshipped and blessed heaven, who had prospered them. So they celebrated the dedication of the altar for 8 days.
The Temple Mount soon is going to be, again, the place of the third temple, the eternal temple, a house of worship, love, and prayer for Israel and for all the nations.
On the march through Jerusalem's Old City, on the way to the Temple Mount, we pass a landmark indicative of a certain Jewish desire to repossess Mount Moriah, the hill of sacrifice where atonement for sin was performed. Preparations are underway for reinstating Jewish temple ritual.
Wow! This golden menorah has been rebuilt according to the writings of the sages and Maimonides. There is an organization here in Jerusalem actively preparing vessels for the rebuilt temple on Har Habayit. Could this be the menorah that will soon stand in that temple, covered with 43 kilos of gold, 1 kikar or talent?
Groups and people started to prepare priests and Levites for the worship in the temple. Vessels. We started to prepare architectural plans for the temple. We educate youth so the next generation will be ready for this great godly event.
As expected, the temple faithful are not allowed onto the Temple Mount. They attempt it every festival, but so far without success. Instead, Gershon and his followers are allowed by police onto the southern steps just outside the Hulda gates. 20 centuries ago, this was the main entrance for Jewish pilgrims going up to the Temple Mount on festivals.
Israel did not come to this land to be another nation in the world, a physical, materialistic nation. We came to complete what God started when He sent Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob to this land, to this mountain. So, weakness of our leadership, the gates are still blocked before us, but as I said, soon it will open.
The Maccabees were few in number. Today, so are the Temple Mount faithful. But could it be, and will it be, that in our time we will see the temple rebuilt here in Jerusalem?
Well, after this unique Hanukkah celebration, let's take a music break with Batya.
Have you ever wanted to come and experience firsthand the land of Israel, to walk the footsteps of Yeshua, or to gain a greater understanding of the Bible? At Roots and Reflections, we want to see that desire fulfilled. We run regular tours to Israel and would be delighted to host you, your family and friends for the opportunity of a lifetime as you come and experience the land of the Bible with us. Perhaps you've toured before and now want to come back. We also have a special tour just for you. If you'd like the opportunity to come with us on a never-to-be-forgotten tour of Israel, then register your interest today to receive regular updates on our forthcoming tours. Either call the number on the screen, email us at barry@rootsforyou.tv, or go to our website and register. We'll then send you details of the next tour we have running. Our tours are always oversubscribed, so register your interest now, and we'll see you in Israel.
At the southwest corner of the Temple Mount, there is a very important word to learn. Our word of the week, kadosh. What does the word kadosh mean?
I would say that it means separate and uniquely set aside for God and holiness. Anything that is a place, it could be a time, it could be an object that is uniquely set aside for God.
Holy.
It's a nice word, no?
It's an explanation, yeah. This is a holy place, holy land.
Holy. To be sanctified, to be holy, to do what's right.
The holiest point, the Holy of Holies, which is on the top of where the original temple was situated, is the most holiest point. And God is holy. God is the epitome of holiness. And we have to try to emulate His holiness.
Well, the word's out. I can't get in because I'm not a Muslim. Storms still loom over the Temple Mount. A short visit by Knesset member Ariel Sharon in September 2000 sparked the Second Palestinian Intifada, which raged for years with waves of bus bombings, terror, and death. Jews and Christians weren't allowed here for years for fear of igniting further Islamic violence. Even today, visitors are prevented from entering the Dome of the Rock, but are allowed to visit outside areas, just so long as they don't pray or read the Bible. At the Western Wall, anybody can pray, regardless of religion. But here, only Muslims are allowed to pray.
The prophet Isaiah prophesied in chapter 56, "My house will be a house of prayer for all nations." You know, and this wonderful vision. Also again in Isaiah chapter 2, in the last days, and we are living in the last days, in the end times. All the nations, the house of the God of Israel will be established in the highest of the mountains and be exalted above the hills, and all the nations will flow to Jerusalem, to the God of Jacob, to learn His ways. Torah will go out from Jerusalem to all the nations. And give attention what He says after that. Then will come a real peace to all the world.
Both the prophets Ezekiel and, as recorded in Zechariah, talk about the river flowing out from the Temple Mount area, and I believe This is just the beginnings of a great rushing river. So I wonder if we can hear it. Let's check. I think there's running water.
What's described in Ezekiel, too, is that this river will flow down through Kidron into the Dead Sea, and large amounts of living or fresh waters will go into the Dead Sea to disperse the salt, and there'll be actual fishing in the Dead Sea. That's what it said.
That river will flow from Jerusalem, according to Revelation, with the tree of life on either side, with healing for the nations. According to Ezekiel, the water will flow from under the threshold of the temple, towards the east and towards the west. And it shall be that every living thing that moves, wherever the rivers go, will live.